A judge has denied a motion to suppress evidence in the trial of a man accused of killing a 3-year-old girl in Edgecomb nearly 2 years ago.
Tyler Witham-Jordan of Edgecomb appeared in court in Wiscasset today after his attorney filed a motion to suppress statements he made to emergency medical technicians the day McKinsley Handrahan died. On Christmas morning 2022, McKinsley's mother called 911 saying the girl was not breathing and cold to the touch. McKinsley was taken to a hospital where she died. The medical examiner's office ruled McKinsley's death a homicide.
According to court documents, the autopsy revealed McKinsley's body was covered in bruises and her stomach was full of blood. Witham-Jordan was dating McKinsley's mother at the time of the girl's death. With the judge's ruling, the first responders who spoke with Witham-Jordan the day McKinsley died will be allowed to testify when the case goes to trial.